Welcome to Intimacy Evolution, the podcast that helps you enjoy deeper connection and more intimacy in your relationships. I'm Brianna Carey, relationship and intimacy coach, and together with my husband Mark, a licensed professional counselor, we're here to help couples create the relationships they crave. Relationships evolve over time, and that's okay. Let's talk about it. I am super excited for our guest today, Kirk with the Calm Parenting podcast. He is someone that I have followed for a very long time, really look up to him, love the podcast and all of his tangible tips. And so I'm super excited that he is joining us today. Welcome, Kirk.
I am even more thrilled than you to be here. No, I'm super psyched for this.
Like I said, I've been following you for a while. You've been very helpful for us in navigating our strong-willed children. So we have a 9-year-old son and an almost 6-year-old daughter. I love your perspective, one being male. Like, we don't see a lot of parenting experts that have the male perspective. So I love that you bring that in and you shared how you came into this because of your experience with Casey and wanting to do things differently. So I would love to hear more from you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and share a little bit about that, and we can dive in.
Yeah. So all of this started because our strong-willed son came out of the womb with boxing gloves on. And I was that old school dad. My dad was career military. So my way or the highway, fear and intimidation approach. And that works really well to curb outward behavior for a period of time. But it just tends to breed anger and resentment. And you don't have a relationship, which I assume is why you want to have kids. And so I tried that with my son because all men are like, I'll just double down. I'll teach him. And you guys know with having a strong-willed child, you double down, they will come back like 5 times as hard with their resistance. And I finally realized when he was like 6 or 7, this isn't working because I tried to change him. Like, we need to change his attitude. We need to change. And then I finally realized that I was the one who needed to change. Right. And to break those generational patterns that I got from my dad, which to this day, I think is the greatest gift I ever gave our son, is to know I'm watching him in his marriage now. And it's like, how do you do that so well? And our marriage, like, we're older. You just didn't have those relationship skills. And like you guys, younger couples, you guys actually talk about stuff. You're aware of your generational issues. We just had them and they played out. And so that set us off on kind of this adventure. I used to be in the corporate world, but I had a heart for these strong-willed kids because they're often misfit kids or very misunderstood. So I got fired from my last job, which was awesome. And we were doing this thing on the side of just like bringing kids into our home because we wanted to teach them in real life situations. Here's how you deal with frustration because you're going to be frustrated because you're a very intense kid. You've got a vision for things, but you don't have the tools to carry those out. And so you're going to get really upset and frustrated. Well, here's how you deal with frustration because that's a part of life. And so long story short, we had about 1,500 kids come into our home over the course of a decade. They changed our lives. They were extremely difficult. Now, I'm kidding. We were the difficult ones. It was basically, looking back, my wife and I talk about this, it was like free therapy. We had all these kids who are really good at pushing your buttons with us all day long, triggering us. And when we finally embraced it and we're like, oh yeah, I need to work on that, it changed us. And in an odd way, it actually changed our marriage. Like, the parenting thing actually changed our marriage rather than us doing the marriage thing first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that you went there.
Yes, it feels very circular, right? You can enter the point of change on either, the marriage or parenting or whatever that looks like. In coming together and starting that process, it just keeps coming over and over, and it's just a beautiful process. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was one piece that I wanted to come into this with was how has this work impacted your marriage, but what do you see with parents that come in and how trying to navigate parenting because you have your own experiences and your different approaches, how does that impact the relationship? What are you seeing trying to get both parents on the same page?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
It tears a lot of families apart because, and I'm not picking on men here, but it's usually our fault. I'm kidding. Because, look, men, here's my compassion for men. None of our dads taught us this stuff, right? Like the only thing I learned as a guy from an early age was compete and win. Compete at sports, compete for grades, you compete for the girl, you compete in the corporate world. I compete in my hiking. I'm good at competing and winning, but that doesn't translate well into relationships. And I know this because of the thousands of emails. Moms, women read parenting and relationship books. And they're always like, well, my husband, I was like, we're not going to read them. I'm going to peruse the table of contents. I'll be like, I got it. Right? And it's a different mindset. And so we come into it and we just don't have the tools. So my initial response was, one is denial. Our son doesn't have any issues, right? He'll grow out of it. And then there's denial of like, I don't have anger issues, right? That's my favorite thing with men. I don't have anger issues. I'm like, clearly you have denial issues. And my other compassion apart from men is we often feel helpless because we don't know what to do. And I'll throw this out there, and I hope it's not controversial, but like we've swung from very authoritarian, right? My way or the highway approach doesn't work. But then we've gone too far to this really sweet approach. And mommy's talking like this. And if you talk to a strong-willed child like that, they're going to be like, why are you talking to me like a baby? I'm 4. Like you're firstborn, right? He would have been like, what are you doing? Like, talk to me like I'm an adult. And men feel shut out of that, right? Because I can't come in and do this tone with my child. And so men can't win on the authoritarian side because we can't do that anymore. And then we swung to this very, very sweet thing. Well, we can't do that. So it's like, you know what? I'm out. I'll go earn a living and I'll do some basic stuff, but it's never good enough. And so we kind of feel shut out. And there's so many extremes in our society. Like, I think one of the things we bring is a middle of the road approach. You don't let your kids get away with things, but you also don't scream and yell. You be even matter of fact and just let them know, hey, that's not going to work. And men, it's funny. The reason a lot of men listen to our podcast is they don't have to change who they are, right? It's like, oh, so I can use the same tone of voice with my kids that I do at work. Oh, yeah, that's way better. Because you don't walk around the office yelling at your colleagues like, you know what, if you don't get sales up, you're going to be fired. How many times do I have to tell you? Like, that's not motivating. But with a colleague at work, you can say, hey, that last project you worked on, yeah, not up to standards. I know you're capable of doing more, so why don't we go for a walk and I'll help you with that. Well, then I walk into the home and my child misbehaves and I'd say, hey, that's not going to work in our home. I know you're capable of doing better. Let me show you a different way. Same exact approach. But for some reason for men, when we walk through the door of the home, there are Legos all over the floor. Why can't anybody pick anything up? You're messing with my internal sense of order. And here's how it affects marriage, in our marriage. My wife had to manage the temperature of the home, and she had to walk on eggshells. I was a pretty decent guy, right? I wasn't like a raging alcoholic or angry all the time. It's just I got triggered. And you wouldn't know at the dinner table, right? Of like, you know what, Case, you need to sit up straight. You know what, I work hard. You're going to eat, you finish your dinner. Well, then my wife has to be like, oh, okay, now he's gone over into this angry thing. Do I stand up for my child now? But if I do that, I'm undermining my husband's authority. And so I place my wife in this awful position of like, can she even talk to me? You know what? I don't know why you're talking to me. He's the one who's not sitting up straight. He's the one who doesn't pick up stuff. Well, then women eventually just are like, I'll take care of the kids. I won't bring anything up. And then we'll all walk on eggshells because we don't want dad to get angry.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I don't want it to be like that's the only way, because sometimes there are men who are like rock stars in the home and wives, you're neurotic freaks, right? Like, and it's like, right? And then you control everything. And then hubby tries to step in. You're like, honey, you're not doing that the right way. And he's like, so it works both ways. It's just in our experience, if it works both ways, we'll leave it at that. I don't want to pick on men.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. I mean, I felt one called out in many different ways as a man, called up is that I've been there, the denial, this is almost like this is how I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to have the dad voice. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel right either. And navigating that, I felt like, you've had to control the temperature of the house. I've had to control. There's role reversals sometimes.
A little bit, yeah.
And then the other partner, I really feel is like, if, like you said, if I don't attend to my wife and I attend to my kids, and then like I'm right in the middle of everything, and then everyone's mad at me.
Right.
There's no winning. It feels like that.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned something that I want to hit on really quickly, if I may, is if I don't do the dad voice, a lot of dads feel, well, if I'm not correcting my child all the time, I'm not doing my dad job. And it's a really hard shift to say, because it was hard for me. When I started doing a more balanced approach with our son, it felt like I was letting him get away with things, right? And I learned strong-willed kids, if you just acknowledge what they're already doing well, right? Just, hey, that was a good choice. Hey, like how you handle that. Planting lots of little seeds, not like overt praise because they don't like that, right? You did such a good job, honey. And they're like, nope, I'm out, right? And then So I would plant seeds, and I thought, well, I'm going to make them soft. And what I found was my son was longing, craving my affirmation. There is a dad hole. There is a thing. I have it. My 3 brothers have it from my dad. We never got it. It's not an excuse. It's not a boo-hoo. But we would be probably more confident men if we had gotten that from our dad at some point. And so the only problem we have with our son is maybe a little bit too much confidence, right? Like, but I'd rather I can bring him down a couple pegs easier than you can like rebuild a kid. But when I started doing that, I was like, wow, that's working. And I use this with men all the time. I'm like, men in every sphere of life respect other men who are calm and cool under pressure, right? We don't want our quarterback coming into the huddle. You guys don't know what route to run. You keep fumbling the ball. Let's go score. Like nobody's following that quarterback. Yeah. We want the ER doctor, the fireman. We want our leaders to be calm and in control of themselves. That vision resonates with men because they're like, I do that in all these other areas. I'm only like that with my kids and often with my wife, right? That dismissive. Oh, honey, there's no need to be upset. You're just overreacting. And a wife should say, I don't know where you're sleeping tonight, but it's not next to me, my friend. That's not working. I apologize for hitting on the man thing so much, but it is a big deal because moms consume content. Men want to hear kind of straight of like, hey, you're being a jerk. Stop being a jerk and do it this way. And they're like, oh, I can do that. And then when we do it, like you probably found as husband and dad, when you started doing it a different way, you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then you found out that Bree was the freaky one. So,
well, that idea of just the leadership and being the leader that people want and that you want to be and what's natural for you. My wife softens, our relationship gets better. If I'm on one side or the other, I'm either too harsh and authoritarian or too permissive and want to people please her all the time and avoidant, and that doesn't work either. Relationships, you can take the temperature of any relationship and that probably represents a lot of your relationships. So if we're doing well, our relationship with our kids is doing well. If we're not doing well with our kids, we're probably disconnected. And so yeah, that's good insight, dude. Because a lot of times I'll talk and I'll be like, well, take the temperature of your relationships. And if all of them are strange, you might be the common denominator, right? And like, we don't do blame or guilt. Like relationships are hard and they're supposed to be hard. To me, marriage is the hardest thing in the world. With a kid, it's like they're a kid. They can be cute. But like, you guys are still young and cute. But after you've been married a little while longer, it'll fade a little bit, right? I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. It's true, right? You've been together and it's like he or she should know better. I remember like, right? Like that sinks in like, you're a grown freaking adult. Like why? So I find the marriage thing harder and now more patience. But that whole idea. So here's what I learned with the strong-willed child thing is control myself. Don't fix my kid. Well, now
I'm married to a very sensitive, highly sensitive, very emotional woman, which is not what a man wants to marry. Because I'm kidding, but it's hard, right? So early in the marriage, it was like, come on, I'm working a job. Could you just get to it? But as I get older, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that. And that impulse that I have to fix her emotions and make her day better, what I realized was I wasn't doing it for her. I was doing it for me. And I remember the day I got that and I said, honey, I need to apologize to you. Because when I ask how you're doing, I'm not really concerned about you. I'm concerned about how it makes me feel. And when you're having a bad day, I want to fix it because that's affecting my mood. And so to me, that's been the biggest change of like, my wife can have a bad day and I don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
Now, she doesn't have to change in order for me to be happy. And I can say, hey, do you want to go for a walk and talk? Or do you want time to process for the next 3 weeks? I'm kidding. I'll
Sometimes.
right? Like, because it's like, how long does it take to process this? Like, I've waited an hour. Don't you feel better yet?
She's a
not
fast
the same.
processor. I'm a slow processor.
You guys
and so,
have the switch. That's awesome. That is awesome. So how does that, so can you relate to that? Like with like, why is it taking you so long?
Oh, for sure.
I've heard it before.
And then
She said,
do you as the husband, do you feel pressure then to change your mood so that she can kind of be happy with that? I want to interview you now. This is interesting.
Yeah.
no. So what happens, I do feel pressure. And then when I feel that pressure, I want to shut down, honestly. And I don't want to share anymore. And I feel that pressure and I just want to say everything's okay. And so that's some programming from childhood, right? Of my own, of my upbringing of, oh, I'm supposed to be processing these things and I'm not doing it fast enough. And she wants this from me and everything's okay. Don't look at me. And so that's a big
thing I've realized is people don't like to be watched while they're struggling. Like, that's why with strong-willed kids, if I have to have a hard talk, I'm never, honey, we need to sit down. I wouldn't say honey to my job, but son, daughter, we need to sit down and have a talk about your behavior. It's like, no, we don't. I'm out. That's defensive response. So it's always, I'm planting a seed. We're talking while we're walking, while we're driving in the car. When my son was a teenager, it was, hey, Kate, what I found in life is it tends to work better when people do X. And then I would walk out of the room. And so I would give him space. Oh, here's the one I wanted to do. Do you mind if I do this one? This is good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a strong-willed child. Let's say it's your son, your 9-year-old, right? And he comes home from school or whatever, and he's like, I want to build a paper airplane. So he builds a little paper airplane. He flies it. It doesn't fly the right way. Why are you guys laughing?
This is real life, by the way. This has happened many, many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. So he flies it. It doesn't fly the right way. So now he's like, stupid airplane, and he's crumpling it up. And like, in your case, Dad would come in with a nice soft thing. I know you wouldn't. You'd be like, stupid airplane. Yeah, you were dumb. Why didn't you do it better? But I'm kidding. So most nice parents come and say, oh, buddy, that was a really good airplane. And the child's like, duh. If it were a good airplane, it would have flown right. Mm-hmm. So instead, what I like to do is come in with some intensity. And then we'll apply this to marriage. You know what? If I were you, I'd be frustrated too. You've been thinking about that plane all day long at school because I know you weren't paying attention in class because you were just waiting to get home to build that. That may not be true, but it probably is. And then you go to fly it. It doesn't fly right. That's frustrating. See, that intense validation says that's normal that you're frustrated. I'm not thrown by it. And you should feel that way. Now, what I didn't say is, so go hit your sister or punch a hole in the wall. I just said you should be frustrated. And then I remove myself. Hey, I need to go get something to drink, go up and change my clothes. When I get back down, why don't we problem solve how to fix this? So I acknowledged it, validated it, but then I removed myself rather than standing over an upset child, looking at him in his embarrassment and shame. So same thing with marriage. Of course you're overwhelmed, honey. Of course, we've got 2 kids. We've run this podcast. The sound isn't working right. Like all those things, like that's hard. So I've got to go take a shower when I get back. So I like a lot of like intense validation, space and time to process, and then come back, problem solving mode. But the tone is very even, matter of fact. It's not like, oh, honey, if I were you, I'd be really frustrated too. And you're like, who are you talking to? That's condescending. But it's condescending to a 3-year-old also.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I will self admit that I can be a lingerer, and it comes from fear a little bit of I don't want him to feel alone and all this other stuff that I'm projecting onto him that are my own fears, not his. Right. And so I love that you said that, to walk away, to give space. That's beautiful.
But here's something you could do as well, because I love that impulse in you to be with him. Here's another angle on that is to say, hey, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I'm going to go outside. I've got a ball. When you're ready, if you want to come out, play catch, I'd love to help you with whatever you're struggling with. Hey, I'm going to go dump some Legos on the floor, start building. When you're ready, if you want to come build with me, yeah, I'd love to help you. So there's an invitation, but you've removed yourself from the room, but you're inviting. And I like the phrase, when you're ready, because it gives the child a little bit of ownership rather than, you need to come here right now and we're going to talk about your attitude. Like that's never worked in the history of relationships. So when you're ready is like, hey, I can tell something's going on. If you've ever heard like our famous chips and salsa story, which was Casey had some attitude with me, and rather than just laying into him, you can't talk to your father like that. Because you know what I told Casey that one time? You can't talk to your father like that. And he replied, just did. Because
Yes.
yeah, that
It's
was
our
awesome.
6-year-old.
Awesome moment. And so I said, hey, I can tell something's going on right now. You're anxious, frustrated, something happened at school. I'm going to grab some chips. If you want to grab some salsa, I'll meet you out on the deck. I'll help you with whatever you're struggling with. See, and that tone says, I'm not moved by this. I don't need you to behave. I don't need you to be, I'm just inviting you to come out here, and then I'm going to help you with this. And it's a beautiful thing to do that with your kids, and then also with your spouse to do that. Hey, I can hear something's going on. My thing with my wife now is I'm available. If you want to talk, if you want to go for a walk, if you want to go for a drive, if you just want to sit in silence together next to each other, I'm comfortable with that. Now, am I really comfortable with it? No, it drives me crazy. But that's what love is, because she puts up with my intensity. Because she does the same thing of like, hey, if you want to go to that thing, because I know the intensity, if you want to go on that hike, let's go do it. I'm like, yeah. And half the time she's like, why don't you call Casey and see if he wants to do that with you?
Yeah.
So it's just respecting. It's a high level of respect for each other. And then maybe we can, look, I'm taking over the interview, sorry. Maybe we can talk about, because you talked about the childhood issues, where that came from. And those will rear their ugly head in your marriage. I think that's kind of what marriage is for, right? It's to bring up all that stuff with someone who's not going to leave you, who you're naked and vulnerable in front of them. That was the hardest part for me. My family, like I could go to work and I was someone at work, and my wife and son were like, yeah, but when we're out of ketchup, he loses it. Why didn't we get any ketchup? Why don't we have ketchup? I can't eat fries without ketchup. And I was like a 35-year-old man in the corporate world, could handle anything, but there's no ketchup in the house. And now the whole night is ruined. My wife has to be like, I'll slink away. And that's what she did for her dad. See, she married her dad. And anyway, we can talk about that if you want. But I'd love to hear your experience with that.
Well, so something that we say a lot is like, your partner is your mirror, and they reflect to you like the challenges, your shadows and things, but then your child is the magnifying glass on those things, like really just like amplifies.
Yeah. It's like the 10X, right? Like you want to work on yourself, get married. you really want to work on yourself in your upbringing and have a child, because that's just so much more.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like as a young couple that you are in some ways reparenting yourself
For
as
sure.
you're parenting your child?
1000%.
Okay.
Yeah, and I heard this definition of being triggered the other day, and it's being triggered is time travel. It takes you back to childhood. And so now your child's a child upset. You're a child upset because you just time traveled back. And now we're two upset children having this essentially conflict. And it's like, how do I parent myself to bring myself to time travel back to being an adult in those moments?
I do want to affirm you and your generation, because because I'm the old guy. We're like, oh, these young kids, they don't do. You guys are doing such hard work. Like, that's the thing about like the millennials, because my son's a millennial and man, they're doing such hard work, like really breaking the patterns. And you guys have such good, I'm watching my son in his marriage with his friends, and I hang out with them a lot. I'm like, you guys are like 30 years ahead of us. Like, you're like in tune with each other, you know, your childhood stuff. So I just want to affirm, like, that's the work you should be doing. And it's awesome. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And hard.
It's really hard. Can I share something I learned from a friend of mine about dealing with your own childhood stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really cool tool that I've used. So here's how our marriage played out. So I grew up in a home. My dad's abusive, so he used to hit my mom and my older brother's son, and I was the third born. So I became very good at hiding and observing. And so that served me really well, because I could tell when my dad got home from work how he closed or slammed the door of his Chevy Impala back then. That's how the night was going to go. So I got really super sensitive to stuff, kept me safe. Well, if you're super sensitive, it also means, you know, you take criticism too hard, you have other issues. But there's always that balance. It helps me in my work now because I can pick up on little things. So we get married. I don't like conflict because conflict meant my mom is screaming. So my wife grows up in a home where she had kind of triggered abandonment issues. So we get into marriage, we're starting to have a little conflict. Well, what happens? I go to the basement because conflict's bad. I don't know how to handle conflict. So I withdraw. Well, that triggers her abandonment because that's what her dad had done. Well, right? And you know that cycle. And so the phrase that I learned was, I know it sounds goofy, but like talking to your inner child a little bit, you could say talking to yourself, hey, when I was a little kid, I learned to hide and observe. That was so freaking smart of you. That served you well. Instead of beating yourself up for it, instead it was like, man, you were smart because you figured out the way not to get hit was to do this. And it served you well in life, but now it's sabotaging your relationships. You're a grown man now. You don't have to hide. It almost makes me cry thinking of that, right? Like you take like a nurse, like almost every single nurse grew up in, not all of them, but a lot, social workers in a home that was chaotic. And they learned, I have to be the caretaker and take control. So that served you well in life. And it served you well in your career. You're a fantastic nurse and social worker because you developed those skills. But now you don't take care of yourself. Because nurses and social workers and people who work with other people, they take care of everybody else but not themselves. So that served you well. But now you're a grown adult and you're worthy. That almost makes me cry, right? You're worthy of being taken care of. And it's hard for people. But I find that language, it's almost, I did a podcast on this where you write a letter to your inner child and say, thank you. Like, you are amazing, but I release you. You no longer have to keep me safe. You no longer have to control everything around you. And it's like this releasing of that responsibility. It's a really cool process. I know it is because I'm choking up and I'm like, why am I choking up? I'm a man. We don't do this stuff. Although you do because you're a sensitive good guy.
Well, good guy. Those are bad words there sometimes, but yeah, there's some level of the pendulum, right? I grew up, you don't cry unless you're hurt, and these other statements. And then it's easy to say, to reject that so much. We swing all the way the other way. And then it's like, eventually we come to the middle. And I would like to hope that I've came more to the middle at some point. And there's always more to go.
Where are you guys, like in your marriage? I'm old, so I don't really care what your process. I'm going to interject. Where are you guys in that process? Because I think it's helpful for people to hear, because you're a young couple going through this. I'm older. But in that process, where are you? Like, where are the points where you're like, oh, I still have, you don't have to share this, but where you're still struggling with that individually, and like, even as a couple, where are those pain points that are still difficult?
Love this question. Thank you. What?
I mean, we could go so many. I could go so many different directions. We talk sometimes about how our trauma play with each other, and the Gottmans say 69% of conflicts unresolvable because it has to do with the personality or a characteristic that's not going to change or a history that's not going to change. And there are definitely patterns we notice between us that are going to probably be consistent. I am going to consistently feel that she is a little more critical than she is because my mom was. And so that pattern comes up over and over. And to play with that, I married somebody who grew up in a more critical space and so speaks that way sometimes.
I tend to have a tone, or I raise my voice because I didn't feel heard. And so for us, I feel like our superpower is navigating conflict in our relationship. We do it really, really well.
Yeah.
I would brag on that all day long.
What's the key though? Like so let's say a situation in which, you're stressed as mom, wife, and then you kind of do just even a little thing, a little kind of critical tone, because men especially will pick up on the critical tone, and we take it as like, right? So when that happens, do you then read his face, hubby's face, or do you say something to her? Like, how does that usually play out?
For me, it's typically his response, because what I have found is when I am kind of quick pace in my head, very logical, I'll say things very bluntly. And so it can come across with that critical like tone. And so when I hear his response, it's like, oh, hold on, that didn't land how I intended. And so I'll be like, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that real quick because this is what I was actually saying or asking. And then sometimes for him, when I'm just really in my feminine like chaos and just like ranting about something, he knows it's not actually directed towards him. I will physically see him like take a deep breath and kind of just square up. And like, that's a visual cue for me. I'm like, he's holding this container for me now and I can let it flow. He know like it's not going to cause conflict. He's like, would you like a hug now or do you need some space? I get to feel into that and ask for what I want.
That's when we do it well. Sometimes we don't do it well.
Yeah.
And I feel very like, like what's happening and wanting to back away. And sometimes taking space is good for us. I think why we wanted you on so much is because we've done a lot of work together and we've read books and we've done parenting stuff, but it still is kind of hard. And it's not kind of hard. It is hard.
It's hard.
And sometimes it might always be hard. I think the struggle there, at least for me, is when I linger too long. If I linger in any situation too long, if it was us, and she's having this experience and I'm there, it will eventually turn towards each other. And I think that's what happens. I'm at a 4 out of 10 with my son and I'm doing okay, but I stay way too long. And then I get to an 8 and now we're battling.
Now it's gone. Yeah.
And and I'm angry and I'm worked up and all this other stuff. And so I still feel that piece of like, I'm doing pretty well. There's a lot of things I've changed about parenting. And then there's just these pieces, like growing up in just an angry household. It might not have been abusive and this and that, but there's a lot of anger. And so that's very much alive inside of me, and navigating that. Yeah. And so that's one thing I'm taking away just from our conversation is like and we've talked about this in our relationship, my ability to stand in the fire and just suffer can be a strength, but most of the time it's a problem.
So that's really good to know. So you know what I would encourage you to do is let's have 2 or 3 go-tos that you do. Like I would physically even keep something like in your bedroom where it's like, oh, you know what? I need to go up and do X. Because just having something to go to in the garage, like a go-to, like I did it all the time. It was either, oh, I got to go grab something from the car. Do I really have to? No. But it gave me a chance to go down. That's like 2.5 minutes. But that's enough to kind of break that like tension with, say, with your son in that situation. And then there's the invitation ones. Hey, I'm going to go, I don't know what your neighborhood is like, but we used to have a Safeway up there. I was like, hey, I'm going to walk up to Safeway, grab a couple things. If you want to go with me, I'd love to have you. So there's the invitation, but not getting hurt when he's like, I don't want to go with you. I'm mad at you. You're a jerk. I'm like, good, because I didn't really want you to come either. Right? And you're allowed to think those things inside. Right? And so have some go-tos. Like come up with a couple things that every time, like one of my favorite phrases is, oh, I just remembered. It's buying me like a 1.5 seconds to come up with a job for the child to do in that moment, because I love giving kids missions when they're upset. Because when you're upset, everything feels like it's out of control. And so you're in one of those common face-offs battles in the living room, in the kitchen, and it's amping up. And then just think you've got 4 of you. So as dad or mom, you're thinking, okay, I'm locked in on my son on this right now, but here's my daughter over there. I don't know, is she feeling upset because I'm yelling at my son? And then my sharp-tongued, lovely wife is walking into the room and she's about to correct me. There's a lot going on there, and vice versa. And, you know, the other side is like, oh, he's lingering too long. Like, why did you stay there? I could see it from a mile away. If you would have stepped out of the room, you wouldn't have had that. And so one of my favorites was, oh, you know what? I just remembered. And I would just come up with something. Do you think you could go to the basement and get X for me? Do you think you could twist the top off of this spaghetti jar for me? Some kind of mission, not a chore, but some kind of mission to give the child to do. So when you're lingering, if you can't remove yourself, then there's oh, I just remembered. And I've maybe come up with a couple things. I don't know what your kids are into, but if like you had an obstacle course in the backyard, or they were really athletic, or they were good at something, like, oh man, you're so good at, could you show me? Like when my son was a teenager, I'd be like, hey, can you help me download this app on my phone? Because you know that I'm old. And then it gave him something to do, and it broke that tension. And we were still next to each other, or he left the room to do something. So does that make sense at all?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a go-to. I just like the go-to.
I think that's so great. I'm just thinking of hearing you and like literally a scenario yesterday with our son. So we just started homeschooling in January. So just inviting more chaos to our life. You know, we do it to ourselves. And he is a perfectionist, and he expects to do things the right way the first time, every time. And he was getting frustrated with this worksheet yesterday. And then he just like goes from 0 to 60. And so we don't have like a middle ground sometimes. So it's like, how do I come into this and be supportive, not undermining him, but there's no disrupting the cycle with him in that moment. Like he's so just like he's explosive. What is your suggestion? Because then
I wouldn't homeschool a kid like that. What are you thinking? I'm just kidding. That was our son. That was our son. No, it's just going to be hard. So I'll give you a couple ideas. Sometimes with kids like that, I just did a podcast coming up on how to like correct. I hate the word correcting kids, but people are like, my son doesn't like to be corrected. I'm like, who does? Like nobody likes to be corrected. So hey, good job on that worksheet. I circled number 4, number 7, 9, 11, and 17. Listen, I've got to go do some laundry, drink a bottle of wine, whatever it is. I'm kidding. But I've got to go do something. When I get back, let me know if you need some help. So I've pointed out, like, this needs to be fixed. But then I'm not standing over, oh, buddy, let me show you how to do this. I don't want you to, right? Like, that's the, right? And we're like, no, I can show you. Like, if you would just listen to me, I could show you how to do this problem the right way. That's the worst thing. I don't want your help. Leave me alone. So I think I'd do either that one remove, maybe a little validation of like, yeah, you know what I love about you? And experiment with the intensity, because we have intense kids, like even in your communication, because you as the wife, you're the more intense one, right? Like I can see it in your face, like in your eyes, like, and then this is so cool. But then hubby, you're more of that, like, tender and kind, and you're me. I'm kidding. But so that language may actually, you can use that with each other with that intensity and bluntness. So it could be, you know what I love about you? I love that you're frustrated over this. You know why? Because it means that you care and you're conscientious and you want to get it right and you can't figure it out. That's freaking, because he did drop the F-bomb as, I'm kidding. But no, you don't have to use the freaking. But when my son got older, I did use a little bit of language with him when he was a teenager, because it wasn't like it was new to him, because the intensity resonated, not with your 9-year-old. Of course you're frustrated. I love the fact that you are so conscientious and you care about that, and you're frustrated because you want it done right. And that may be enough to be like, yeah. I don't know. He still may go on a little bit, but you may do an invitation, and you may even make this up of like, you know what I'm frustrated with? I'm frustrated because I had planned to make this meal tonight, but I forgot the one key ingredient. We don't have any garlic, and I'm frustrated. That may not work, because he'd be like, duh, what are you telling me about garlic for? But then you could do an invitation of, hey, I'm going to go outside and do something physical. Fresh air is great for moods. I would encourage parents, have something in the basement or backyard that's physical, because physically working off stuff is a great way to handle frustration. Just saying, hey, let's think about our frustration. It'd be like, no, now I want to murder someone, right? But because you can't think through, you've got to do sensory kits. A lot of us have sensory kits, physical stuff in the backyard. Hey, there's a shovel out there. Do you think that you could go, because you're pretty strong, could you dig 3 holes for me because we wanted to plant something? Even if you're making up jobs, stuff they got to push and pull. And what you're teaching them is your frustration is normal. Nothing wrong with frustration. What's wrong is hitting your sister, punching holes in walls, calling me stupid. But your frustration, oh, I can deal with that. We're going to have some frustration. But here's how I deal with it. I do something physical. And our son, Casey, he will text me at times. And he lives right over there, like 7 minutes away. We're in the mountains. And he's like, Dad, I need to go do some ski touring today, or else I'm going to be fighting with Lydia all afternoon. I'm like, good choice. Because we both know we're jerks unless we work off some of that ick. And so that's a great teaching thing. It's a lot better than, I don't know why you're getting frustrated. You know what? You're so smart, honey. Screw you. If I was smart, I wouldn't be struggling with this. Forgive me for the language. I don't know if you're family friendly.
You're fine.
But
We've talked
I
about
think
that.
there's something visceral in that they relate to, and that we need, like with my son, we're very visceral in how we talk about things, because he gets it very quickly that way.
Yeah, I love that. With that theme, I had one question. I did post in our Instagram stories yesterday, and one that kept coming up was like siblings. So one, we're homeschooling. Our kids are together all the time now, and it's almost like codependency. Like, he's being mean to you, leave him alone. But then she just follows him around because she wants to be with him. It's like, give yourself space. And so, the sibling fights. And I know you have some episodes on this, and I would love to like link those in our show notes too. But if you could touch on that just a little bit, like how do you
Okay. Couple
manage?
things with siblings is, one, it's normal. if you don't have sibling fights, then your kids are weird. Like you put enough people in the home together all day, you're going to irritate each other. So I like normalizing, because a lot of moms also, if they didn't grow up with siblings, they're like, I don't understand why they're fighting. I had 3 brothers. I mean, that was part of our childhood, and we're all in our 50s and we still do it. We spar online together. But that's part of, with men a lot of times, and I do think this is important. I watch sports shows. I like the pregame better than the actual games. And my wife is like, why? And I'm like, look at the male camaraderie, because they're busting on each other. Like it's that give and take that is so important. But with siblings, so homeschooling, I'd say, one is giving them some physical space. If you have a neighbor nearby, like if you're in a neighborhood, I'd find an old guy or old woman in the neighborhood, because older people tend to be safer. I don't want to send them over to some creepy 35-year-old that's not married. But, well, seriously, you've got to watch that in society now. I don't trust single guys who are 35. Like, anyway, you know what I'm saying. And to your point earlier, I used to make this kind of comparison of like marriage. Like, you get a 35-year-old guy who's married and has a couple kids, and a 35-year-old guy who's not married and plays video games and does whatever he wants all the time. The difference in maturity, it's not that that guy's a bad guy, but the difference in maturity when you're married and have kids is 1,000-fold. And not to bust on Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback and as a human, but he really just needs to get married and have kids. Like, he is a narcissistic kind of, it's all about him. He has nobody to hold him accountable and say, hey, you're just being a D word. Like, cut it out. Right? Like, there's truth to that. And you can see the leadership of like the quarterbacks in the NFL who are married and have kids. They're more patient. They're better leaders. It's a really, why did you just laugh at that?
Oh, I said Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I know people hate him, but the guy's unflappable because now he has 3 little kids and an obnoxious family on the side that he has to deal with, right? And so he's unflappable, but then you've got Aaron Rodgers, who's like 41, never been married or have kids, and he's always searching for himself. When you're married and have kids, you're not searching for yourself because it's right in the mirror. Here's who you are, Dad. I can tell you your childhood by the way you're raised. Right, and I'm not knocking him. I'm just, as a point that I don't even know what my point was in there. But let's find an old guy or gal, woman in the neighborhood and say, hey, my son's really good at doing X. Would you invite my son down to come to your house and help with something, raking leaves around the house? One, our strong-willed kids are usually really good for other adults. They're just horrible for their parents. You've seen that, right? And that old guy down in the neighborhood, oh, we love having your son down here. He's so helpful. He listens to everything we say. And you're like, wait, who? Who is that? And then it builds his confidence, and it gives his sister some space away so you can actually get work done with her. Don't be afraid to ask other people for help and to give. And your daughter's 6, so she can start doing some things of like walking. They could start a little business together. Walking dogs and pets sitting in the neighborhood. People pay amazing amounts of money to watch their pets. So homeschooling, I love to do that. And then I think over time, it is the brain stimulation that causes fights of, I'm bored, so now I've got this plaything here. If I look at my sister, she'll react to me, and then mom will react, and then dad will come in because mom's reacting, and one kid, by looking at his sister, gets 3 people upset. So for me, it is exhausting. Your homeschooling is going to be exhausting because you've got all day, but break out of the normal thing. Go outside, do schoolwork at different places. We used to do, back in the day, we homeschooled Casey for a little while because he got kicked out of school. So it was either like get notes every day from school or just like struggle all day alone with him. And so I homeschooled other kids for a while in a way. Like they would come over like a little co-op. We go to the ice rink for like an hour and a half and we get a couple subjects done. Then we go to Panera. We took our own food and sat outside, but they liked the music and they liked the stuff and they had free little bread samples. And we go to a coffee shop, and the stimulation of the coffee and the environment was actually really good for their brains. They didn't drink coffee. But we moved a lot. And you guys are young, you look very active. So I wouldn't, like, if the weather's good where you are, I would do a lot of work. Oh, go on hikes together. Now they're going to fight during the hike, but at least they're outside. It's not as loud outside when they're screaming at each other. And so you do an adventure of, hey, we're putting our backpacks on, we're going for an adventure, we're going to play in the creek, and then we're going to do our schoolwork by the side of a creek. Well, that's a lot more interesting than, kids, sit at the table. Mommy and Daddy have a really nice lesson plan planned for you today. And they're like, duh, that's boring. So I did a whole thing on sibling issues last July, 2 sibling podcasts. I can send it to you if you remind me later. I think it's late July, siblings and social skills. I did 2 episodes. So if not that people have to listen to the podcast, but they should.
But I highly recommend.
For sure.
Yeah, they do. But they do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Do you have anything?
No, I was just closing ideas and thoughts. I'm just, a lot of gratitude is what's coming up for me.
So much. Yeah.
I appreciate, you know what heartens me, encourages me is you guys as a young couple, like being aware of these issues and working through them. Like my wife and I were probably like in our 40s before we even realized, and there were no real resources back then. So I love your generation. My parting thing with kids is enjoy your kids. We get so wrapped up. I got to discipline. I got to motivate. I got to get them ready. I got to prepare them. And then we forget to just enjoy them. And I'll tell you as an older guy, when I'm looking back, so much of it was just unimportant. The best parts were we connected and went out and had fun. I know, but they need to do homework overnight. It's virtually useless. It's meaningless. Most of what you're doing with homeschooling, it doesn't matter for their future. I guarantee you the things that matter are the things that your son, especially a strong-willed child, does outside of the home. And the stuff where you're like, come on, we got to do your schoolwork. And he's like, Mom, I was going to build this thing in the backyard. We don't have time for that. We've got to get our school. And I would say, err on the side, even if your kids aren't homeschooled, let them do the things they're really passionate about. I'm not talking about being on TikTok for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But if they're building and crafting and thinking, forget the homework. Let them pursue their passions and trust your own instincts as moms and dads, and don't listen to schools and society. You know your kids. You know what's best. And trust yourselves. And in your marriage, I would say the same thing of enjoy each other and enjoy the fact that you're still there together and you're both flawed, broken people, right? Figuring it out together, and just have that extra ounce of compassion of like, you know what I used to tell my wife is, you met my dad. You met my dad, right? Bill Burr does a little thing on that, like, how do you not get my intensity? You know my dad, right? And so anyway, you're a super lovely couple. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and I can't wait to kind of introduce our audience to what you're doing, because I think they'll really be able to relate. And I don't do as much on marriage because it's just too messy. And so I'll leave it for you guys. You'll be the marriage ones a lot, and then I'll stick with the parenting.
There we go.
No, this was so great, Kirk. I'm just so excited for our listeners to hear you, connect with you, and they'll start listening to your stuff. And I know you have programs available, Calm Parenting Podcast on Instagram. I'll link everything in our show notes. I just really appreciate your time and how you make it so easy and tangible, bite-sized. It doesn't feel overwhelming to implement. And I really appreciate that.
Not easy, but simple. Right?
Yeah.
It's hard.
And I'm excited to parent the next thing that comes up for my kids.
Yeah.
After this.
I hope it comes this afternoon. I hope when you get
it
off
will.
of this
I mean,
podcast,
it will come in probably 10 minutes.
As soon as we go downstairs.
and you're going to be like, I'm out. I'm going to get a burger and fries. I'm not lingering today. That's awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. Have a great day, and we will see you all on the next episode.